forces surrounding this trial. Dark, powerful forces.
I'm an agnostic, remember?
Demons exist, whether you believe in them or not.
Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained, and as voted for by everyone in the latest poll, today we'll be exploring The Exorcism of Emily Rose, the 2005 supernatural horror directed by Scott Derrickson, loosely based on the true story of Annalise Michel. Starring Laura Linney, Tom Wilkinson, and Jennifer Carpenter, the film revolves around 19-year-old Emily Rose, who believes she was possessed by demons. In an extremely rare decision, the Catholic Church officially recognized her demonic possession, leading to the performing of an exorcism. While it was approved by both Emily and her religious family, she tragically died after a few days. And because she was in his duty of care, her priest, Father Richard Moore, is accused of negligent homicide. The following case focuses on the debate of culpability in the present, while providing flashbacks that give varying accounts of what happened.
In the case before you, the evidence will show that the victim's condition rendered her physically and psychologically incapable of caring for herself.
The film begins with a medical examiner being called to the Rose family to check on her condition. Everyone in the home is broken and despondent, having gone through days of hell. After examining Emily, the doctor apologizes to the family, saying that he cannot conclusively state whether the cause of death was natural. As Father Moore looks onto the barn, recollecting the events that transpired, he's taken into custody. Of course, a media frenzy ensues, forcing both sides of the court to pick their champion carefully. Wanting to ensure their prosecutor was viewed as being unbiased in the eyes of the public, the DA bring in the ruthless Ethan Thomas, a Methodist Christian that believes Moore failed in his duty of care. On the other side, Aaron Brunner, famous for helping a man named James Van Hopper beat a murder charge, is offered the opportunity to represent Moore. Aaron's firm represents the Archdiocese, and his senior partner Carl explains it's a unique situation, in that Moore doesn't want the church to represent him. With the church wanting the crisis to be resolved swiftly and conclusively, they essentially want her to convince him to accept their counsel. Erin is right to be cautious, and even points out her instinct is telling her not to get involved, but she eventually concedes to picking up the case if it means she'll be promoted from junior to senior partner.
Why did they choose you?
I wanted this case.
So you like the spotlight. Now you've come here to further your celebrity.
No, I'm here to make senior partner at my firm.
When she meets up with Moore in jail, the priest asks if she was religious and if her intentions are to garner more spotlight. Erin admits that she was agnostic and that while it wasn't for the spotlight, she was doing it to move up at the firm. He tells her he doesn't think they can work together, and she uses the opportunity to explain what his odds would be with a public defender, but Moore is unfazed. When asked what his concern was, the priest explains he doesn't care about his reputation and isn't afraid of being in jail. His priority is to tell Emily's story in full. With this, the two make an agreement. He will be allowed to say what really happened without interference, while she will at the same time do what she can to win. Meeting up with Emily's mother, Erin learns about what a happy and normal life the girl had prior to her acceptance into college.
It is going on.
Is it?
It's a scholarship. They pay for it. They pay for everything.
Following this, she's contacted by Ethan Thomas for a drink to discuss the case. It's here that he explains the judge thinks they should give him a lesser plea deal of reckless endangerment, feeling it would serve the community better. When asked about his personal feelings, he tells her it's simple.
If he's a man of God, personally, I think he's even more subject to the laws of moral behavior and punishment. If it were up to me, he'd get no deal at all.
While it meant that he would spend no more than 1 year in jail, if Moore rejects it, Ethan will seek the maximum. Despite this, with Moore making it pretty clear that he wants to have a chance to explain what happened, they agree to go to trial.
I don't care about my reputation. I'm not afraid of jail. What I care about is telling Emily Rose's story.
Unfortunately for the defense, the trial begins with a damning opening statement from Ethan and the calling of several medical experts, beginning with Dr. Edith Vogel. Edith tells them that she took care of the Rose girls all their life. In her eyes, Emily was bright and happy, and while she was anxious about being apart from her family, she looked forward to her studies and had even met a young man named Jason that loved her.
Before these troubles began, was Emily a happy girl?
Oh, yes. Before she went away to university, my Emily was so very happy.
It's here that we find out about Emily's first incident. Her roommate had gone for the weekend when she began noticing odd things happening around her. Waking up at 3 a.m. to the smell of burning, Emily had the strange feeling that someone was watching her. Not long after this, she was attacked by an entity.
3 a.m. is the demonic witching hour. It's an inversion of 3 p.m., the miracle hour, which is traditionally accepted as the hour of Christ's death.
Edith is followed by Dr. Mueller, chairman of the Department of Neurology at the university, who admits he initially thought the girl was on a hallucinogenic until tests showed no trace of drugs in her system. The more he listened to Emily's story, the more he believed the uncontrolled electrical activity lighting up her brain was epilepsy.
In a severe or grand mal seizure, a person may lose consciousness for several minutes and suffer involuntary contractions of all the muscles of the body.
Mueller then prescribed Gambitrol, but after a while, she stopped going to the exams and refused to take the medication, believing her condition to be spiritual and not medical, a conviction that Emily, her family, and her priest all shared.
And would Father Moore's advice to stop taking Gambitrol be good advice if Emily were in fact not epileptic?
Of course, but that's not the case here. She was epileptic.
During the cross-examination, Aaron makes him admit that he could have been wrong about the epilepsy diagnosis, and if that were the case, Emily not taking Gambitrol was actually a really good thing. She then presses him further, getting him to admit that it may have well been psychosis. By doing so, Aaron highlights he's only picking the parts of Emily's experience that fits his epilepsy diagnosis.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ethan Thomas. I'm the Assistant District Attorney, and I represent the people.
When she meets up with Moore that evening, the priest warns her to be careful, explaining that there are dark supernatural forces at play and that she may be at risk for taking the case. Continuing to learn more about Emily's episodes, Erin is notified of the terrifying experiences she had at school, which force her to move back in with their family.
Acquitted last year after a controversial murder trial.
Can you turn that up, please?
Police say James Van Hopper murdered a young couple earlier today.
It's around this time the lawyer discovers Van Hopper used his freedom to kill 2 more people. Following this shocking revelation, Erin begins experiencing the supernatural, from waking up to the smell of burning, doors swinging open on their own, to both her watch and alarm stopping at 3 a.m. Even the priest is visited by dark apparitions in his cell and is forced to use his faith as a shield.
Defend us in battle against the princes, powers, and rulers of darkness.
Due to the spooky interference, she arrives late to court the following day. Making her job difficult is the next medical witness, Dr. Briggs, who's an expert in neurology and psychiatry. He explains the cause of death was a gradual shutdown of the bodily functions, cumulative effects from physical trauma that were exacerbated by malnutrition. Her body was essentially unable to repair itself. While conceding the injuries were both self-inflicted and the result of her epileptic seizures, Briggs tells the court that Emily's epilepsy developed into a form of psychosis known as psychotic epileptic disorder.
The seizures would have the characteristic symptoms of schizophrenia, such as auditory and visual hallucinations, and sometimes extreme paranoia.
In his eyes, Gambitrol would have saved Emily if she'd continued her treatment. In the cross-examination, Erin then posits that Emily had in fact taken Gambitrol just as advised, but continued having hallucinations. It wasn't until they all surmised the medication wasn't working that she stopped taking it. She continues prodding by revealing the term psychotic epileptic disorder was no different to, say, hilarious spontaneous combustion, in that both are not scientific and were made up on the spot, something the doctor concedes. When asked what he would have done instead, Briggs explains that he would have sedated Emily and force-fed her to combat the malnutrition. This would have been followed by electroconvulsive therapy, notably against their will if she refused.
Electroshock treatment. You would have done this against her will.
To save her life? Absolutely.
When recess is called, Erin apologizes to Father Moore for being late, saying that the power went out. He tells her that she's in a spiritual battle with dark forces trying to push her away from the light, but as an agnostic, she doesn't pay it any mind. That is until she starts considering a new approach, to validate possession in the courtroom.
But I've got 3 articles by the anthropologist who wrote this book. She approaches the subject of possession from a scientific perspective and doesn't try to debunk it.
And so, the following day, she tells the court to keep an open mind, positing that it wasn't until traditional medicine had failed the family that they turned to their faith for salvation. Jason is then brought to the stand as we get flashbacks of Emily's condition worsening on the medication. He explains that despite her efforts, the demons controlling Emily would not let go. With nothing else working, Father Moore was ultimately brought in to help. And during one of her crazed rants, she began speaking to him in Latin with another voice, before scratching his face. It's at this point that her family and the priest got the Catholic Church involved, believing her to really be possessed.
Emily, can you hear me?
When anthropologist Dr. Sidira Adani is brought in to testify about various cultures' beliefs regarding spiritual possession, Adani explains that based on her analysis, Emily was a hypersensitive, essentially a person with an unusual connection to a separate reality, and it is this sensitivity to the other realm that made her a vulnerable target. Basically, once the demons realized Emily could see them, it put a target on her head.
Hypersensitives are born different from everyone else and sometimes be uniquely susceptible to invasion.
More than this, she explains that the reason the exorcism didn't work was because of the intoxicating effect Gambitrol had on the brain.
The drug made her immune to the psycho-spiritual shock that exorcism is intended to provide.
While Ethan is quick to make fun of her credibility as a witness, a medical doctor present during the exorcism comes forward to the defense team and reveals a shocking audio tape made during the rite. Not wanting to be caught in the media frenzy, Graham Cartwright initially asked the priest not to involve him, and Moore obliged. But feeling guilty for withholding information that would give insight into what truly happened, he agrees to testify.
She was completely aware of the separate entity inside her. And of course, this awareness of her alternate mental state is counterindicative of psychosis.
He tells Erin that Emily was well aware of each of the demons controlling her, throwing the notion of psychosis out the window. It's not until the tape is played in court that people begin to wonder whether there was some truth in the possession claims.
This is the exorcism of Emily Rose.
We then get flashbacks to the exorcism of Emily, who's speaking in tongues, contorting her body, and making the animals go crazy, before breaking free and continuing to terrorize them in the barn. The demon inside Emily refused to name itself at first, but after being compelled by Father Moore, it finally revealed that there were not one, but 6 of them.
Tell me your 6 names! We are the ones who dwell within.
While they made a bit of progress, Moore concluded the exorcism had failed. Graham is supposed to appear in court the following day, and when he doesn't show up, Erin walks outside to find him on the street. Terrified by ominous signs around him, he tells Erin that he can no longer participate before being hit by a car. And despite Father Moore's request to tell the entire story, Carl tells her that she'd not only ruined the trial, but that she would be fired if she recalled him back on the stand. Defying her boss, Erin calls him back to the stand the following day, enabling him to read a letter that Emily wrote before she died.
Why did God allow Emily to become possessed by demons and then die?
I can let Emily answer that.
It's here that we discover that Emily believes she'd been visited by the Virgin Mary and was given the choice of ascending to heaven, but chose to suffer. The priest does not mind being sent to prison for the rest of his life, so long as he had a chance to make it clear that in the face of overwhelming evil, Emily did not give up and did what she thought was right. With this, Father Moore is ultimately found guilty. However, on a recommendation from the jury, the judge agrees to a sentence of time served. And while Erin is offered a senior partnership for saving Moore from extended jail time and avoiding embarrassment for the firm, she ultimately quits, ashamed by the James Van Hopper case and left haunted by Emily's plight. The film ends with Erin and the priest visiting Emily's grave, no doubt wondering if they could have done something different. Well, that's all for today, folks. A huge thanks to everyone that took part in the latest poll. If there's anything else you'd like for me to cover, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.
And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil!